Welcome to the Reconnection Club podcast, the show that helps parents heal troubled relationships with their adult sons and daughters. I'm your host, psychotherapist Tina Gilbertson. Each week, I'll offer you compassion, clarity, and personal development tips designed to help you reconnect, not only with your child, but with yourself. Now let's get started. Not everyone I talk to who's estranged from their adult child or children is in exactly the same place, emotionally or spiritually or knowledge-wise about what's going on. I've found over the years that parents seem to go through what look to me like fairly predictable stages, and I've written about these stages online. I'll give you a link to that in the show notes. And just like the 5 stages of grief observed by Elisabeth Kubler-Ross, not everyone goes through all of them, and they don't follow a linear progression from 1 to 5. I mean, you might be in stage 3 and then skip to stage 5, only to find yourself suddenly back in stage 2. So let's find out what these stages of estrangement are and what your main task is, depending on the stage you're in. Stage 1 is shock. Many parents are surprised and horrified when it first dawns on them that their adult child is intentionally creating distance. From the parent's point of view, estrangement often seems to come out of left field. They didn't see it coming, and so they are shocked when it happens. And often this happens in families that were very close before. There was a time when it might have been inconceivable that any family member would cut off any other. The main task, if you find yourself in this stage, is to remain calm. Don't panic. It's normal to feel desperate to get things back on track as quickly as possible, but acting out of panic or desperation makes you do things that will not serve your purpose and can actually make things worse. So, stage 1 is shock, and you may start there, you may go back there from time to time. But the task of the stage is to remain as calm as you can and realize that estrangement can happen in any family, so avoid acting impulsively. Stage 2 is despair, and this is one that you can spend way too much time in. In Elisabeth Kubler-Ross's stages of grief, if there were an analog to despair, it would be denial in her model. Parents in the despair phase feel powerless and sometimes resentful of their child. They think, why is he doing this to us? What did we do to deserve this? All of the focus is on the estranged child and his behavior, his motivations, his next move. But the task of this stage is actually introspection. To move out of the powerlessness of this despair stage, you've got to somehow wrench your focus away from your child and on to yourself. So then you can unearth any emotional stuff from your own past that may not only have contributed to some problems in your relationship with your child, but are also making you feel pierced through the heart instead of just hurt and confused by what's happening. It's hard to pull your focus away from what your child is doing, but if you don't pause and look at your own emotional history, you may get stuck in this stage for a long, long time. Stage 3 is something that strikes dread into the hearts of parents when they hear this word, but that's only because there's a lot of misunderstanding around it. Stage 3 is acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean, I give up, I guess I'm never going to see my child again, oh well. That's not acceptance. That's defeat. There's a big difference. Acceptance means that you acknowledge the reality of the situation as it is today. You don't assume anything about what happens tomorrow. Acceptance might sound more like this. I accept that my child is voluntarily creating distance from me right now, and that she has her reasons for doing that. Acceptance is really just about acknowledging reality and refusing to lie to yourself about what's actually happening here. If you don't accept that your child is voluntarily estranged from you right now, you're not in a position to make changes. So the task here is to let go of old expectations and acknowledge today's reality as your new starting point for what might be a more evolved relationship with your child in the future. This acceptance stage is, I think, the beginning of emotional healing. The next stage, stage 4, I call transformation. This is a powerful stage in which changes are happening mostly inside the parent, but sometimes on the outside as well. The feelings of powerlessness don't dominate anymore. Anguish is not reigning supreme. The parent becomes more interested in her own personal growth and integrity. She may set boundaries for the first time. She decides in this stage whether to keep trying to reconnect with the child or to let go and focus on living her best possible life without them. Or both. Either way, the parent's decisions are not knee-jerk reactions to her child's behavior. Instead, they come from her own values and sense of integrity. There's a new sense of calm and more awareness of personal power than at any other stage of estrangement. The task of this stage is to tolerate the pain of knowing things you'd rather not know in the service of radical personal growth and development. The insights and strengths that parents can gain during this stage can never be taken away from you. And it's often during this stage that breakthroughs are made in actually reconnecting with your children. It's quite an exciting stage. The final stage, and again, parents can cycle all around between and among all 5 stages, so not everyone gets here or ends up here, but stage 5 is maintenance. This is where you're living day to day with the new normal, whatever that is. It might be that you've reconciled with your child, or it might be that you've settled into not being reconciled, or you've decided not to continue trying anymore. This new normal doesn't feel normal at first. Hence, the name of this stage is an active verb, maintenance, as in maintaining something that requires attention. I talked a little bit about the awkwardness of the reconciliation phase in episode 17, Walking on Eggshells After Reconciliation, and that's an example of a maintenance phase situation. But there are also parents who are learning how to live without hope or intention of reconnecting with their children. And if they're doing that mindfully, that also takes some effort. The task of this maintenance stage, then, is self-care. To make sure that any void you feel inside is a void that you will take responsibility for getting filled. It might mean asking for support from your peers or your partner. It might mean going to therapy or joining a support group. But basically, nurturing yourself well, you might even say parenting yourself well, is the main task of this final stage called maintenance. That should give you a taste of the 5 stages of estrangement, but if you'd like to take some time and go a little more into these, visit our show notes page at reconnectionclub.com/22 and look for the link to the Stages of Estrangement articles. Until next time, remember that you are a loving, lovable, and still growing human being. So please take good care of yourself. Bye for now. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Reconnection Club podcast, I invite you to check out reconnectionclub.com. The Reconnection Club is for parents at any stage of estrangement from their adult, child, or children. So whether you've just realized there's trouble between you, you've been living with estrangement for years, or you're newly reconciled but still walking on eggshells, the Reconnection Club is your essential resource for information, support, and continued personal growth. With our courses and workshops, expert interviews, monthly Q&A calls, and a friendly, active community, the Reconnection Club is a wonderful place to be for anyone suffering the pain of estrangement from an adult, child, or children. So check it out at reconnectionclub.com.